kind of group problem with Joe Rogan is that he has effectively created a network where he lets things or ideologies that can be easily disproven work their way into discourse. So the first issue, the most obvious one, would be the people that he brought on to talk about the vaccine. When he had those conversations, he was bringing on people who it was very easily Googleable to see that these people didn't actually have PhDs and accreditations, and they wrote a couple of books, and they happened to say something else, cherry picking data. Instead of challenging these notions, what he would end up doing actually is just kind of saying, "Whoa, that's kind of crazy. Whoa, that's he would do the Joe Rogan thing, which started to lead to this brand of people that started to come forward saying things like, there was a movie that came out called The Plandemic. There was, Stella Emanuel and all the frontline work doctors of America and shit. There was all these groups started popping up, and it all started centering around Joe Rogan and these other right-wing podcasters, Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, these people, Steven Crowder, who all kind of had this ecosystem of we're just saying the things that the other side isn't saying. When Joe got that deal, what ended up happening is he started hosting people more and more who were sitting on fringe beliefs. There's one person in particular, this leads us to the second problem with Joe Rogan, Matt Walsh. If you don't know who Matt Walsh is, cool. Maybe somebody will link something. Depends on how chat feeling today. Matt Walsh is somebody who, quite simply, and I really mean this, I've done an entire dissertation on him, he just wants trans people dead. That's just his goal. There's no other way around it. There's no way to rectifiably get a point of what he says, knowing full well that he is just full of shit. There's a person that I think you would find very interesting. His name is Cody Johnston. He runs Some More News, who has done very big deep dives into him. Maybe we'll do one today. It depends on how chat feels.
No.
Matt Walsh is a transphobe. He is a genocidal maniac. He makes up these stories. Like, there was this big story that went around about there's this big update about children needing litter boxes because they wanted to be furries and they were transgender furries and they didn't know which bathroom to use. Big story. Literally big story. Turns out that was a lie. That was just straight out a lie. Just a lie. It was just a lie. And the actual real story was, wait for this, the litter boxes were put in schools, so kids would have a bathroom to use in case they had to hide in the classroom during a school shooting. They took that story and made it about trans kids because they don't want trans kids.
Of course.
Joe Rogan solidified Matt Walsh's positions and didn't push back on any of it. When pressed on the issue, he went back to his freedom of speech thing. Everybody's allowed to say what they want.
Right.
But right now, we are currently in a time where people like this are pushing a kind of eugenist, fascist, kind of like we're teasing the ropes here kind of situation. Which leads us to the third problem with Joe Rogan. He doesn't have politics. He's just a dude, bro, who listens to people talk. He posted a couple of days ago, which I think you know, he had an episode where he came up with this long conclusion about COVID and a long conclusion about trend. Like, he came up to this wild conclusion and just spent an hour talking about it off a tweet that turned out to be a fake tweet. That was photoshopped. The whole thing was photoshopped. It took him 2 more days to post a retraction, but by then, right-wing media was already running with it.
Right.
The problem with Joe Rogan, and this is not where I want you to internalize this as like, the problem with a lot of media today is that it feels fair, it feels balanced, it feels like you are listening, like especially the podcast like world. It feels, cool. It feels okay. It's important. This person's bringing out these details, that details. The average person would not be able to sit there and listen to 2-3 hour podcasts and dissect everything that happened and say, well, that's a lie. You're not pausing that podcast to respond to it while you're driving.
They don't want to listen to anybody else's opinion unless you're a fucking professional who have a certificate for something that could just be in order to fill your pockets and not actually help out your own people, help us in general.
Joe Rogan for the past 2 years has spent a lot of time building the right-wing narrative.
Yes.
And it's because of Joe Rogan that people like, and I hate, he knows this, and this is why people asked him, why would you even say, like, why would you put DeSantis' name out there like that? This is why people, like, kind of wanted Donald Trump to be president. Because people like Joe Rogan gave a platform for these ideas to rise. I can show you somebody named Jesse Lee Peterson, and 15 minutes into him, you're going to be like, okay, this guy's clearly an idiot. But he's got just as much power in conversations as a lot of these people were talking about.
Exactly.
So it's not like I want to say to you, Joe Rogan is wrong about everything and I think we should stop listening to him. I want to say, I think that you are now meeting somebody who has the time to really comb through these things, because that's my service to my community. Is like, that's why they call me the paradigm shift. It's not that I want people to say, oh my God, like, what are you saying to me? I'm wrong about everything. I'm saying to you, there's a very large network of people who stretch truths. Yes, it is true that there is a lot of crime in African American communities. It is not true that black people are inherently violent. Those people, like, and this is something that Joe Rogan has said out of his mouth recently, those people will perpetuate the truth into a bad conclusion. You might have heard some things, you might have seen them say some things, they'll pull up a dot. Jamie, pull that up for me. And the joke is that one of our biggest streamers, Hassan Piker, anytime he has a girl on stream, he will eventually show them Joe Rogan to laugh at him. And it's so funny that you brought him up, because I was trying to avoid that comparison, and now here we are. We're like, I feel like
just putting it out there too. Not to mention also all the pharmaceuticals and everybody else saying, "Oh my gosh, they're just saying that it's like COVID. All you have to do is just take it's just a vitamin deficiency or whatever." He was talking about vitamin D.
Yeah, and like, and that's what I'm saying to you. Is like, that's hormone, that's. Do you know what that is? Yeah. And like, I'm not saying that this is happening to you, but I want because it's for the stream.
No, for sure.
This is what is known as radicalization. And it don't even feel that way, right? It don't even feel like they're even saying anything worth that title. But it's the first thing where, like, you get onto a random thread about Hillary Clinton and the emails. Like, there are people who spent their time to read the emails and gave you a breakdown of what it is. Those people will never tell you that video exists. I'm the one, this side of the aisle will be the one to be like, hey, wait a minute. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, you've heard a thing that they've said, or maybe you've heard. Right-wingers love saying this thing about Benghazi, where there was this huge tragedy thing and 4 American soldiers died or whatever. And they said that's Hillary's fault. She should go to jail over that. The Obama administration, Hillary, everybody should go to jail over those emails. Right now in America, there are over 2,000 people a day dying from coronavirus in just New York City.
Yeah.
Like, we have 9/11s every day.
Yes.
We have 9/11s every day. that empathy is what Joe Rogan lacks. So again, I'm going to say it's not like I'm telling you, oh my God, let's unpack everything he's ever said because it's probably all wrong and everything. No, I'm saying to you, I think that this is, and my chat is welcome to disagree with me. I think that this is a moment where I am seeing what the difference is between, and I think I said this with Thad as well. You remember Thad? Thaddeus.
Oh my gosh! Please remind me. I wasn't really keeping up with
Rad
this.
Thad. Thaddeus.
How long ago?
You saw him at the show too.
Yes. Oh yes. He actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember now.
The people we met out with when I smoked before my stream, my set.
I truthfully remember the whole cable TV show.
Yes, him. Yes,
like,
him. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. That. I can't forget that. Once you see his face, you can't forget that.
Cover too.
Exactly. So I think this is a moment where and I've said this to people. I never felt like I'm truly plugged into the internet. You know, I've been on it for a long time. I've been involved in some things. You know, a lot of my life and thoughts are categorized, cataloged on the internet. But at the same time, like, as you know, I'm out there. You know, I'm in groups. I'm with people, you know. This internet shit isn't the same as out there. Mm-hmm. I'm noticing the difference between me who stays in here and talks about these things and gets different perspectives and sees all of it versus a person who's working and like at a certain job that where nobody gives a fuck about that there. Like we're not doing that there. Like we're here for about a mission. We're here about making money. We're here about teaching. We're here about I gotta get this. I gotta get that. Like there's no time for you to really give a fuck about any of this. What I'm saying to you right now doesn't actually really matter. Like it's not like you're gonna turn, you know, Joe Rogan off tomorrow and start listening to my recommended podcasts. But like at the same time, I wonder now, and this is a question I'd like to ask you. It's not an accusatory question, of course. I wouldn't do that. Just I know how people hear things, and I'm very entertaining. So like I don't want.
You're good.
Do you, based on just what I've said thus far, can you think of a thought or maybe a premise or a thesis or a point that you heard during the Joe Rogan show that maybe you feel now might have been misrepresented? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Out of mostly all the things that he's been just focusing on, which is just just talking about the vaccine, talking about, you know, everything. It's just he's putting his own personal life into a lot of things, and he believes that this is actually the resolution for everybody. I believe he sees it as one way. He does apologize, he does put in his input about different things that he puts out there, but he does advise and give warnings before. That's how he's gotten in trouble before. It's just like stating things that are not real or stating things that may not be approved by the government or whatever. So, you know, it's just things that he needs to understand that he's putting it out there for meatheads or whatever, just like he was also explaining. He needs to just be a little bit more, show a little bit more empathy.
Could you think about one specific thing that you might have questions or doubts about that maybe you agreed with in the beginning after listening to his show?
One thing that I really wanted to also point out about the podcast, which caught my attention out of everything that he's been doing, he always talks about, besides doing drugs or doing anything for your, I don't know, for just like neuroplasticity purposes, you could just try to do the sleep deprivation tank. He did kind of mention this either way because it's just the way that he's talking about like neuroscience and like, you know,
that right everything. There, those types of topics, that's what he's good at.
He's very
that's
good.
What he knows.
He understands from the inside out everything. But
I want you to notice, and this is the part that I love. You're gonna smile so hard at this. I want you to notice that the things that you actually take away from his stream are the things that you find interesting. The space between your average, I would love to try a sleep deprivation tank versus like trans people are grooming your kids so they can have sex with them is so massively wide.
Yes.
That's why I'm saying to you, you don't have to, you can say yes or no on this.
It's a broader concept too when he brings it up.
Right. Could you reasonably see why I said, wow, that's a portion of radicalization?
Yeah.
Because you yourself, the first thing that, well, if it's the main thought that came out of your heart, something that's neutral. Everybody could do that.
Oh, yes.
It'd be great. Acid is great. For me, at least. Shrooms are great.
Because he does talk about everything from personal experience, but his perspective and points on something political and having to do with the government, that's when people just throw off their own opinions and just put on this discussion for no reason.
So he tries to pass himself off as that average Joe.
Yeah.
Like he's just like, I'm interested in the space and the stars and the... But when he mixes that in, and this is where like I have to make a declarative statement. When he mixes that in, he is more often than not just completely wrong. Yeah. And the reason for it is because money. What I'm about to show you is like the existence of certain people, including that of somebody very close to Elon Musk, who I have done an extensive investigation on, like actual journalism, and today will be the day that we put together the final nail in the coffin and prove that somebody who claims to be against sex trafficking is actually either not who they say they are or participating within it themselves.
Probably.
Can afford a sensory deprivation tank, a cryogenic recovery chamber, time to go wild game elk hunting, and I don't know, a lifetime supply of testosterone to be a podcast host? I'm gonna use this clip posted about a week ago to demonstrate my claim that Joe Rogan is delusional about a lot more than you think. Joe Rogan analyzes the Chris Cuomo fake weight controversy. The clip that Joe and Tim Dillon are talking about is Chris Cuomo one-arm shoulder pressing and a 100-pound dumbbell and then curling it as if it's 15 pounds. There is no chance in hell that you can defy the laws of gravity and manipulate a weight like that. Chris Cuomo's wrists would snap off of his limbs. The biggest and strongest dudes in the world struggle with this. Cuomo tosses this thing around as if it's a toy, because it is. It literally has his name on it. It's a gag. It looks like his wife gave it to him as like an office present. It was like, here honey, whenever you do something nice for New York or say something funny on TV, just curl it, you're big and strong, we love you. It's a gag gift. It's not real.
Chris, what are you doing?
Just get a little pre-show pump.
What does that say?
Cuomo prime time. Hashtag let's get after it.
But here's another one. There's a picture of him sitting at his desk holding a 100-pound dumbbell up in the air, and bodybuilders are calling bullshit.
Because it is bullshit. It doesn't take a brain surgeon to realize this. Have you ever held 100 pounds, Joe?
Oh, interesting. I didn't see that.
Also because of the angle that he's holding it. Now, Chris Cuomo is, look, I'm Italian, I could say this, he's a guinea.
Right.
A lot of those guineas are stupid strong. They're monkey.
Yeah! Oh my god, I would have said that out loud.
Strong.
I bet he is.
There are a lot of them.
What? First of all, let's analyze that. I'm Italian, so I can say this. Italians are strong as shit. Well, guess what, Joe? I'm Italian, so I guess you're right. Your boomer logic for once checks out. I'm being sarcastic. That doesn't mean anything. Like, what? Dumb stereotypes that have no grounding whatsoever. Oh, Italians are strong. Guess what, Joe? I'm Italian. I'm strong. But the two don't correlate. You think a diet of fresh mutz and gabagool is gonna make you stronger than other people? No. It's just like that cultural tall tales.
There's a guy that used to run a sandwich shop near our house who could curl his own body weight 10 times.
Jeez.
And nobody believed him, and this guy barely lifted weights. And he did it before a wrestling meet. He was like a big-time wrestler in Newton South.
Yeah.
And he wound up losing the wrestling meet. It was like legend in the town.
Are you sure you're not describing like Mario and Luigi's long-lost Nintendo cousin? The sandwich shop guy?
Because his arms were blown out. Because he made like $100 on a bet showing people that he could curl his body weight 10 times.
Joe just goes on this anecdotal rant about this one man in a sandwich shop who could curl his body weight 10 times and uses that as the logic as to say why all Italians are jacked as shit and are so strong they can dumbbell press 100 pounds.
I don't know if he was trying to
Frank
be serious
Subs.
with this. This is...
No, he's fucking serious, bro. Okay.
I understand your point. I have not.
This is where we get our news in America.
No,
And yo, and that's the key. That's the key. Yo, you and me, dead ass, have not had a conversation this long and intense in our entire lives together. I want you to see something. I know that you think right now that what you just saw was probably like so minute and so like, that's his whole shtick. That's the shit that you can't pay attention to when you be listening, when you be driving, when you be working, when you put it on in the background. Those are the things that people take literally, and I am going to show you later, like, what I mean when I say people take that literally. There is an entire right-wing propaganda machine right now that props him up, and barely nobody knows about it because honestly, and I'm gonna tell y'all because we done already had this conversation. This was the conversation we just had. When we together, we don't give a fuck about that. Like, that's not what we...
I know. You're just like, oh, but no, like, okay, dude. All right. We never really got into this whole discussion, but honestly...
But no,
it's
right, because it's not... To me, and to my audience, yo, what up, Vices? To me, these types of conversations can and usually go south because people will see it as an attack on themselves. What do you mean? I had this opinion, and what do you mean? I heard this, and what do you mean? I heard that. And it's like, for me, it's become, I've spent, the decent portion of 2020. You remember when I was making those videos, like the Breonna Taylor video, and then that, and then, I've been reading and everything. It's like, none of this information actually is hard to keep abreast on. It's made to make you feel that way because it's all like entering this world and everything that we've talked about for the last 23 minutes. That was a lot. Like, I covered a lot, multiple problems with him, multiple people. You'd have to know who that is, this, that. Is there really you said genocide? Well, that's a big word. But to us or to people who will do this for a while, it's like, yeah, I've heard about a lot of anti-LGBTQ laws passed in a bunch of states already. I've heard about the Supreme Court repealing Roe v. Wade. I've seen the pattern. We're seeing the trend. But you also know, I carry this and I'm still outside.
Yeah.
So when I hear, or when you brought it up, I clamped on it because I feel like you can understand if I felt like it was important, there would be a reason behind it. And I think a lot of people don't have that counter voice to a Joe Rogan.
It's because they don't further want to educate themselves. And there's nothing wrong with having a belief. Once you learn more about it, then you're like, oh, okay, let me take a step back and actually do real research about this.
Right.
That's why it's always great to have an open discussion about that. And
right. Right. Now, again, like I said before, and like you just heard, there are things that he specifically can be right about. His problem is that he's not subscribed. Because he's not subscribed at the top of the hour. Every hour, 60-second ad. See, when I start running ads, it's over for you bitches. We're ending the segment here. Say goodbye.
Goodbye. It was a pleasure being on this